Mr. Clerk, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Well, good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the September 24th Commission. It's always a pleasure to have you. There are multiple opportunities to speak. You can either speak on Zoom, you can either speak in person, or you can call us by phone. Any of these opportunities are always welcome. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to welcome Yoli, who's here with us today, who will be providing us with the invocation. Good morning, Yoli, as always. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and City Commission, City Attorney, City Clerk, residents and employees of the City Beautiful. Thank you for the privilege and honor to give the opening prayer today, and I'm humbled to do so. Father, we acknowledge that we need your wisdom and insight, and we welcome your presence among us today during our City Commission meeting. Father, we pray for world peace. Remember the suffering and the less fortunate. Help us to love and forgive one another as you love us. We thank you for your provision in our lives, in meeting our daily needs and even our wants. And help us to trust you, especially in these trying times regarding those things we do not understand. Father, bless our elected officials today. Give them wisdom and guidance, your wisdom and your guidance, as they deliberate on the items before them. May every decision be righteous in your sight and a benefit for our residents and employees. Remember their family who also serve and support them in their vocation as a public servant. And we give you all the praise, all the honor, and glory. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.
Amen.
Yoli, thank you for answering the call. As always, it's a beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our pledge. Mr. Clerk, please lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely. Please stand, place your right hand over your heart. Repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to presentation and protocol documents, item A1. Good morning. Good to see both of you as always. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Mayor, members of the Commission, City Manager, Solange Lopez, Marketing Manager with the Economic Development Department.
And Matt Anderson, Assistant Director for Mobility and Sustainability.
Today, we are here to present one of two of this year's Commercial Beautification Award winners. The Commercial Beautification Awards serve to recognize businesses that have gone above and beyond with the beautification and maintenance of their storefronts and surrounding areas. This is an award that we started 3 years ago, so this will be the third annual award cycle. And it is a collaboration between economic development, sustainability, our Keep Coral Gables Beautiful program, and code enforcement. We received nominations from March to April for businesses that have shown these attributes from the public, the chamber, code enforcement officers, since they're the ones out there seeing these businesses every day, and internally from staff, as well as other businesses in the community. Today, we are here to honor and present this award to Beauty and the Butcher over in South Gables. We have some pictures being shown of their locations now. And we have the co-founder and CEO of Grove Bay Hospitality Group that owns this restaurant, Francesco Bali here, as well as their marketing director, Rachel Thering, and their general manager, Luis Montejo. Matt, you want to talk
Yeah,
about
I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the city's Sustainability Advisory Board. You all have members appointed to that board, and they're the ones who vote on this when the nominees are brought to the board. So just wanted to take an opportunity and thank them and their continued support in overseeing our Keep Coral Gables Beautiful program and all the programs we have under it. So,
Good morning. Welcome to the City Beautiful. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, guys. No, really appreciate it. We've been in Coral Gables. That was our first restaurant for Grove Bay Hospitality Group, so it's near and dear to our heart. We opened Shula's 347 Grill 14 years ago and then rebranded it to Beauty and the Butcher, and so we're very happy being in City Beautiful and hope to be there very long. So thank you again for this award, really touching. Great, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we have a plaque and a decal to present to them that'll show their guests when they walk into the restaurant that they are Commercial Beautification Award winners for this year. We'll also be recognizing them through e-news and our LinkedIn profile to get the word out of the great work that they've been doing.
Perfect. Let's take a photo. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, B1.
You have the approval of the minutes for the regular city commission meeting of August 27th. If there's no amendments to the minutes, may I please have a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Public comment?
First speaker this morning, Mr. Mayor, is Mrs. Maria Cruz.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's a beautiful day in the city, in the beautiful city. Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Have a wonderful meeting. Let's hope that at the end, we'll still be celebrating the wonderful day the Lord has made. Thank you.
Next speaker is Roland Rodriguez.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for being here with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I understand this is not on the agenda, but we thought we wanted to, on behalf of the neighbors, wanted to speak on the item. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. My name is Roland Rodriguez. I reside at 3310 Alhambra Circle. I'm here to express my concerns on how the Commission has handled the issue of the proposed pedestrian sidewalks along Alhambra Circle. I understand that this issue has been a topic of discussion for some time now, with special interest groups led by a single resident heavily involved. At last Commission meeting, H1 was discussed. This was to be a presentation of the results of our July ballots, where 4 directly impacted residents unanimously voted in favor of sidewalks using option 1. Our ballots were completely ignored, and it quickly turned into a discussion of options on the premise of safety. However, it is clear that the decision was heavily influenced and opposed by one single resident, Robert Ruano, a well-known resident to the city through his special interest group. One single resident and his own special interest group opposing a unanimous vote of 4 directly impacted residents. Ruano, who is not an engineer, stood here last Commission and quoted the Florida Green Book without discussing context or engineering judgment. I'm not part of any special interest group. I'm not a politician, and I'm not an attorney, and won't pretend to be neither. I am, however, a licensed professional engineer, and I'm familiar with the Florida Green Book. Out of the 553-page document, he picked 1 page to fit his narrative without taking context or engineering judgment into account. You have professional engineers on staff that have gone on record to say that a curb and sidewalk is a safe and commonly used design as seen throughout our city and specifically along San Amaro. Ruano calls us new residents and is obsessed with saying we only want a bigger front yards without regard to safety of the community. However, we have never made any mention or argument regarding the size of our yard. If we wanted bigger yards, we would have voted no to sidewalks. As residents, we love our homes and neighborhood and pay taxes to our city just as he does. As we have clearly voted, we're not opposed to sidewalks, but we want to maintain our beautiful trees lining our Alhambra Circle and our vote implemented. Ruano indicated the balloting or seeking engagement from residents is an unprecedented move. For my research, Ruano is all for resident ballots when it fits his narrative. However, he is opposed when they don't. In a letter from Ruano attached to the January 2020 Gables Insider article, and quote, the fact that the city is providing a vote at the end of the month where affected residents on Alhambra and side streets can vote on the project is indicative of the transparency with which the city is working. Both Vision Zero and Alhambra Circle Lane resolutions mention community outreach, community engagement, and resident support. Seeking community engagement and even balloting is not an unprecedented move. Our votes have been completely ignored on the premise of safety with no justification or statistical facts as to how that concern was reached. The only safety concerns are this commission continually delaying the process for over 4 years and having my neighbors and I continue to walk on the street in front of our homes. Our ballots were clear in their intention. The city will proceed with the sidewalk option that receives the most votes. I'm almost done.
So
Sorry.
please move forward.
Why were our ballots ignored? Was it not a clear direction from the May 21st commission? Why were no safety concerns from the commission discussed prior to sending out the ballots? Commissioners Castro, Fernandez, and Menendez rejected our ballots. Well, what are your specific and verifiable concerns? I have requested public records for safety studies and crash reports that validates our concerns or concurs any possible safety concerns. Alhambra, between the bridge and Burr Road, still remains without sidewalk and will present bigger challenges as right-of-way is lessened and beautiful mature oaks are in conflict. Are we going to allow Ruano and his interest group to bully our community and attempt to make all pedestrian decisions in our community? Or are we going to make this democratic process whereby directly impacted residents have a say and a vote? We are extremely disappointed at the undemocratic decision made during last commission meeting regarding this matter and urge that this matter move forward as represented by our ballots. Our vote has been made clear and we want option 1 implemented. Thank you for your time.
Sir, thank you for being here with us. Mr. Clerk?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we'll close the public comment. Moving on to consent agenda.
Before the vote adopting the consent agenda is taken, is there anyone who wishes additional discussion or review of any item on the consent agenda?
I do have questions regarding D5.
Okay. I also have a request from a member of the public to pull the item. May I please have a motion on the amended consent agenda?
I'll move it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, agenda item D5.
My question is regarding the requirements to sit on this board. This is one of the few boards in this city that has additional requirements. Mr. Clerk, were you able to check if this individual meets all the requirements?
No, sir.
Okay, because the person does not. Here are copies of the requirements to sit on this board. There's a residency requirement. Each member of the board shall be a resident citizen, domiciliary of the city of Coral Gables, and an owner of real property or spouse of the owner of the city of Coral Gables during the term of appointment and also for at least 5 years prior to the appointment. I was not able to find any records of this individual owning real property in the city of Coral Gables presently or before, so I think it would require further looking into, Mr. Clerk.
Go ahead, Madam City Attorney.
So membership is not, you do not have to be a property owner. Of being a citizen is sufficient, citizen and or.
And an owner of real property or spouse of owner in the city of Coral Gables.
So this is the, let me see where it says this on here. The zoning code, which is what, I'm looking at the zoning code, Commissioner, and it says and or, and let me see here, this one. This is from,
No, this is the actual requirements of the Board of Adjustment.
okay, so,
And in fact, this is the reason I didn't appoint somebody else to this board, because they were short by 3 months.
so this is the summary that I believe is posted by the, on the boards and committees page, but the zoning code, so this, there seems to be an error on this summary, but the zoning code says and or, citizen and or.
I had asked the clerk's office for this information when I was originally appointing, and I was told there was a 5-year ownership requirement. Mr. Clerk?
I don't recall
That was
providing
when I
you
was
that
first
information.
elected.
Mr. Clerk, if I may, do you have an email where that request was made?
It was done in a meeting with the clerk. when we were discussing board appointments.
Commissioner Fernandez, Stephanie Throckmorton, Deputy City Attorney. We looked at this recently at Commissioner Menendez's request. We looked at a bunch of different boards, and my understanding of this requirement and the and/or is that you could be an owner of real property located within the city, but not a citizen, as in you don't live in the city of Coral Gables, but you own property in the city. That's why it's an and/or, to account for those who may own a commercial property in the city or be the spouse of an owner of a commercial property, but not be a citizen. So the and/or is to account for that situation where you may not be a citizen, you may live in the city of Miami, but you're an owner of real property, say on Miracle Mile, for at least 5 years, so you may qualify for the board in that way. So it would be like a non-citizen board member is the and/or, is my understanding when we looked at this.
So I think the confusion stems from the fact that this sheet, which is not, this is not the copy of the zoning code, but this sheet seems to have a Scrivener's error. And so that seems to be where the confusion is stemming from, but the zoning code is what controls.
Right, but if I'm understanding you, the and/or is regarding the actual ownership of the property versus living outside the city.
No, so the board member can either be a citizen of the city of Coral Gables,
Okay.
which we have defined to be as somebody who lives within the city. It doesn't mean that you have to own property. You are a citizen. So you could also be a citizen and own a property in the city, or you can be a citizen or have owned property in the city for 5 years.
Right.
The only situation where you would be not a citizen but own property is when it's not your home, for instance.
All right, so can we get that fixed on the city's website?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
All right.
I'll move it.
Second.
I have a member of the public requesting to speak on the item, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Maria Cruz.
Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road. I object strongly on this appointment because of obvious reasons. Let's see, public attacks, internet attacks, blogs, etc., that this person has done to several members of this commission and several members and residents of this city. Civility is not one of his strong qualities, and because of that, I object.
Anything else, Mr. Clerk?
If
No,
I
Mr.
may
Mayor.
just quickly answer to Ms. Cruz, I understand your concerns, but the reason I'm moving this is the mayor has brought up similar concerns on one of my appointees before, and I did move forward with that appointment. I think the mayor has the right to choose who he wants sitting on this board, so if this is the individual he chooses, then I will support that.
And I'll add to that, I've had, concerns about certain individuals that I've appointed to boards, and I have not, based upon very identical comments that were made about those members, I have not removed them from the board.
Mr. Clerk?
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Castro.
No.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez.
Yes.
Mayor Lago.
Yes. All right. Moving on. Moving on to item E1.
E1 is an ordinance of the City Commission amending the Code of the City of Coral Gables, Florida, Chapter 2, entitled Administration, Article 3, Boards, Commissions, Committees, Division 1 generally, by amending Section 2-52, Qualification and Appointment of Members in order to expand the benefits offered to members of city boards, providing for repeated provision, severability clause, codification, and providing for an effective date. As you recall, this was deferred from the last meeting, and so this, the ordinance as proposed has no changes from the last meeting. It's the same version.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. As a sponsor, the sole intent of this legislation is very simple. We're not bringing, I'm not bringing anything very complex before the commission. I'm just trying to bring simple things that, again, benefit the residents and people who serve on this board. Do we have anybody from staff that can provide further details in regards to information that was requested? Mr. Director, thank you for being here. There was several questions in regards to usage by members on different boards. Can you give a little bit more clarity so people understand the depth and breadth of the concerns and why there is no concerns?
Sure. We looked at, based on the requests when we were last here, we looked at the usage of both Venetian Pool and the tennis centers as discussed. by board members. What we found is actually less than I had estimated. Over the past year of Venetian Pool, we had 7 different board members that came and used it. So it's only 7 in a year, pretty small. Tennis, we had 4 board members that used it. 3 of the 4 range from using it 4 times in a year to using it 8 times. And we had 1 board member that used it regularly, equal to about 1.5 times per week. So not an super extensive use. If we're looking at value, like we said, if someone's coming and bringing their family, if you're looking at the pool or tennis, it's between a few dollars, $6 to $9, depending on what you're playing, whether it's tennis or pool. And for a family of 4, the board member is already free, so you'd be paying like about $18. Family of 5, you'd be paying up to $24, depending on whether it's tennis or pool. Tennis, if you're playing in prime time, it's a little more expensive than what the admission is to the pool. So that's on a given day. What you are doing in terms of worth is right now they get what's equal to a single person membership, and you're giving all the board members a family membership. Now, the dollar cost of that, it's a few $100s per person, but that's if they will all use it at the same time. And as our use has shown, you're not getting that.
So if I may, and I don't want to put
Yes.
words in your mouth, this is a nominal impact.
Yes, in my opinion, it is.
Minuscule impact, okay?
Yes,
And
based
I think
on the
that
information
obviously
we
this
have.
is something that I can add on personally to my own ordinance and say, review it after 1 year.
Yes.
See the impact after 1 year, come back to the commission and say, this is the impact, the uptick of cost associated with it. And
I think that's a great
either
idea.
continue moving forward with the legislation as is, or you can just repeal it if it has a significant impact on the bottom line.
I'm in agreement.
I just want to comment. I've supported this item from the get-go. If I'm not mistaken, I think I mentioned last meeting, years ago, board members had more benefits than they have today, access to different things. I think because of some financial hardships that the city experienced over the years, there was a cutback on what board members were allowed to participate in. I think we're in a position now to where we should, like the mayor's doing in my legislation, in terms of going back and looking at the folks that serve our city and find a way to reward them for the service that they do. So I think this is exceptional. We should do more of this.
I would concur through the mayor with those comments, and it's a small benefit, but, for those of us who don't golf, this is at least recognition. I mean, not everybody has the time to go out there and golf all day long. So I don't. But the board, even as a board member, I never had an opportunity to really take advantage of any of the benefits of being a board member. We did it for a special reason, but the recognition is, I think, warranted and necessary. So with that, Mayor, I'd like to move it if you have no further comments.
No problem.
I'll second.
I have no objection to this. The only concern I have is that we're not capping the household, at least till 4. And I feel that I have full trust in our board members, but I feel there should be some limitation to at least 4 as a household cap. Are you open to amending it?
I'm not, because if you have a third child, then you have 5 people, so you have to leave 1 at home. So at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's a nominal impact on the board. So I think that personally, the legislation, this is as easy as it's going to get. Like I said before, I'm not bringing anything complex to the commission at all. I'm bringing as simple things as possible that are bread and butter items that should get full approval from the commission. If you want to disagree with it, it's perfectly fine. But based on the merits, this is just a simple, like the director said, there's a nominal impact. I'm even giving you an opportunity at the 1 year mark to be able to say it's working or it has a very significant financial impact. All 300 board members are using it. Let's scrap my legislation. I've even given you that safety valve to address it. So I think that everybody should be able to attend Venetian Pool as a family, not have to leave somebody home or have to pay for one of their additional members.
So
That's my opinion.
I'd like to add to that comment. I think it also creates an undue burden on staff, having to do head counts on families. It's just,
Yeah,
it's just
I
too
can't
much.
say that tennis, by virtue of if you're playing doubles, it's 4 on a court. It's very hard to bring 5 to play tennis. So tennis is an easier one. I mean, with the pool, it's, yeah, I mean, if you have 3 children.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
I
Have 3
understand
children,
your
so-
concern. I think the 1-year mark will have a better understanding if it did have a large impact, if we did have families showing up with, all their friends, their kids' friends, that's something that we would need to keep track of. But I think the mayor's addition of a 1-year revision on this, I think that at least calms my concern on that.
We
Will
will
you be-
discuss with staff to make sure that once we've enacted this, that we look at that, and we're going to mark down if they're bringing parties of 6, parties of 7, and we'll take a look at that. As you said, it's our hope. We trust that they don't take advantage of the process, but we'll be able to see it. And the 1-year mark would be great, because if it turns out, as Mayor states, people are bringing parties of 7, parties of 8, and all 280 board members are using it, then we might have to relook at it.
Okay,
Perfect.
we're ready.
Clerk, we have a motion, a second.
Mr. Mayor, I have a member of the public requesting to speak on the item. Mrs. Maria Cruz.
Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road. I have an issue because when we talk about members of the household, if you look at the board members, committee members that we have a great number that are my age or older, and most of us do not have children living with us. So this will not apply to those of us that take care of our grandkids, but they do not live with us. They're not members of our household by definition. I think that, to me, is a big issue, because not everybody has children living with them, and I'm not talking adult children. I'm talking about minors that we take care of because parents work or whatever the case, and those will be excluded.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I'm in favor of passing this as is, and we can look into the grandchildren, at another point, give staff some time to digest that, because I think that's an analysis they'll need some more time with. I would be in your same shoes, because my grandkids, are not members of my household either. So,
Mr. Clerk?
Commissioner Castro.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
yes.
Mayor Lago.
Yes. Following item?
Mayor, E2 is an ordinance of the City Commission providing for text amendments to the City of Coral Gables Official Zoning Code, Article 12, Ambiance Standards, Section 12-100, Lighting, and Article 16, Definitions, to provide for illumination standards and definitions, providing for repealer provision, severability clause, codification, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you very much. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. How are you?
Good to have you here.
I'm good to be here. Can I have PowerPoint, please? Thank you.
And I'll add that no, I'm just going to say she's done a lot of work on this and a lot of research.
Well, thanks to many interested residents. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm happy you brought that up, because we've been getting, especially from one resident that lives a few blocks away from here. I had a conversation and a few emails with them, and they've been very engaged on this. And it seems like there's no answer to resolve it, and I commend the vice mayor for working on this, and because this is a big issue that certain people in this community are fighting with, and I think that this will bring a lot of relief.
So I'll tell that story real quick.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to touch the story, because I know that.
No, I've had calls for months, and we went through the process. It doesn't meet the code, and went out and measured the light candles. Okay, so I don't quite understand what a light candle is. You have to have an instrument to read it. You can't go to Home Depot and buy a bulb based upon light candles. So they went out and measured it. It met the code, but things have changed since then. We now have LED lights. We have Kelvin ratings on lights that are much more extreme than we ever did as when we were growing up. So, and this poor resident is suffering from sleep deprivation, and that can have, impacts on your health, et cetera, in many different aspects. So this is an effort to provide some relief as quickly as possible. I know our ordinary course is to send it to Planning and Zoning first, but looking at the timing, and we need to provide some relief. Jennifer's worked very hard on this. I want to bring this forward, and let's get it moving. We can always tweak between first and second, whether it's a different lumen rating. I feel very comfortable with 3,000 K on Kelvin, because there's a lot of data behind that. And Planning and Zoning can, put their touch on it as well as we drill down on that. But the goal here is, I think, we can get this back for second reading late October, maybe, hope. A Christmas present for the resident. So go ahead and proceed with a technical explanation of all this stuff.
Sure. So as discussed with the last meeting, we have two areas in our zoning code that deal with lighting. The first one is in each zoning district, deals with to conform with the standards of dark skies. And then the second one is actually Article 12, our ambient standards, which is very minimal right now. It provides some protections for adjacent residential properties, but not a lot to work with. So this amendment today is going to be expanding in that article. And then also Chapter A6, which is the Miami-Dade County Code, that deals with parking lot lighting, rooftop lighting, the safety standards, deals with lighting. So today's amendment deals with the four aspects of encouraging dark skies, right? So shielding as far as controlling the amount of light that's going to be exposed to the sky, the color temperature, making sure it's more warm tone for evening experience, the lumens or the brightness of those light bulbs, and the timing, allowing some diminishing of lights after hours that's not needed. So the provisions are divided into three areas: the general requirements for both non-residential and residential properties, and then residential properties, and then non-residential properties. So the general requirements apply to all, and that would require appropriate spaced bulbs, so you don't have too much brightness that might overpower an architectural feature or make it uncomfortable for a pedestrian, for example. Also limiting the redundant light that you might have on a street. Street lights obviously are already there, existing, taking into account of existing street lighting when you're providing for light on private property. And also requiring the Board of Architects approval for illumination of any building tops of multifamily and mixed-use buildings. So you won't have too much lighting. That way Board of Architects can review that ahead of time. And then also to limit the light color temperature to 3,000 Kelvin, both within residential areas and also adjacent or abutting residential areas. And the residential requirements are much more lengthy, right? So limiting the heights of light poles and the setbacks according to how high they are in residential properties, and as well as providing lumen maximums. Now this is what we're going to tweak, I think, probably between first and second reading. Right now what's in the proposed amendment before you today is based on that document, the Dark Skies Standard example ordinance that the Dark Skies Association has. So we based off of that, but there's still some more tweaking, some more finessing of those lumens. Basically, the diagram below you, unshielded light fixtures would have lower lumens, so it would not allow as much light. And as you become partly shielded, then you can have more lumens. And then when you're fully shielded, and then you're basically reducing the amount of light, you would be extremely both into the sky and also to the adjacent properties that would allow you to have higher lumens. And then the non-residential requirements would limit the non-residential buildings to have lighting on the ground floor for the pedestrian experience, as well as the building top. And a good example of that is the Biltmore. The Biltmore has that very top tower is lit very nicely, and also the ground floor to to add to the pedestrian experience. And then also the light reduction after work hours, so not to, for parking lots and for rooftop parking, so not to have excess lighting to the dark skies, but also to allow that reduction. And that's kind of based off of the Section AC3 in our Miami-Dade County Code that does allow for that, but they don't require that. So that will be based off of whatever they allow per building use. Some building uses you can't obviously reduce the parking lot lighting. Hospitals, for example, you want to have that lit all night long, but there are some office uses or something that they see that would be okay to reduce that lighting. So we're here for any questions. Thank you.
So, couple things I've learned while drilling down with Jennifer and Dr. Bernal on lighting and some architects regarding lighting, because right now, the top of the buildings are not reviewed on lighting by the Board of Architects. And we can see an example of that mistake at the plaza. The bulbs are too closely together. You really cannot appreciate the quality of the architectural features of the building as a result of that. So that's one of the changes in here that I am going to require those types of, building tops to be reviewed by the Board of Architects. I Googled architectural lighting, and you can see some really magnificent architecture highlighted and accented with lighting. And it really does take an architect, I think, to do that analysis and how to emphasize the beauty of the building. So that is no longer going to be a staff decision on the building tops. And, some people call the plaza the Ring of Fire. So we want to avoid the Ring of Fire. Again, you can't, I just don't think it's the look we want for our city. It's just like billboards, So the other, I talked to you about spacing and architectural lighting. Here we just have the Kelvin rating. 3,000 Kelvin is the most available bulb out there. As Dr. Bernal summarized for us the last time, there were studies that were done on other communities where they put out the lighting ranges between 2,700 and 3,000. 3,000 was about where most people landed. And then you have the availability of the fixtures as well. That leans on that. The lumens, I'm not an expert on. So I've deferred to staff here to give us some input. I think the Planning and Zoning Board can weigh in on it as well, and if there needs to be some additional tweaks, we can do it before second reading. So any comments from any of us here?
I'm glad you brought it up because I went out with some friends on the Bay, and we were coming back at night, and the only building that you can see from the Bay at night is the plaza. And it's basically just a bunch of lights. Prior commissions, when that project came up, factored in parking, traffic, many other components that have not had a large detrimental impact on the neighboring communities. But the biggest concern in that area is the lighting on the plaza because it's shining into people's homes.
So, as written, this draft would apply without exception. So the lighting's going to have to be adjusted. Maybe just bring out, take out a bulb every other one. That's up to staff to address. But when we have residents unable to sleep at night because they have an apartment building across the street from them with a 5,000 Kelvin light just going through their bedroom window, and no matter how much you try to block it with your blinds, it shouldn't be the burden of the resident. We need to take action. And this is the action, I think it's going to move it in the right direction.
And I commend you both for the work that you've put into this. I'll be happy to second it.
I'm supportive of the legislation. I have a couple questions just to get clarity. So in a sense, it'll be retroactive. It's not for new construction, but it'll apply to current buildings?
Well, I think that's one of the issues that we will work on between first and second reading. Since there was, some urgency in getting this on the agenda, there's some issues that we want to tweak, and we also want to get the input of Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay.
And so that's something that we'll be, looking at.
Okay. Just real quick, another thought would be that just like you can't play in our central business district, music after certain hours. Another thought would be also to say after whatever the time is for people to have in our CBD, the restaurants open, that lights on tops of buildings at that point need to come off, the decorative lights. Just a thought instead of, it might be a good way to manage it, perhaps.
So I did see in other cities, they do have a curfew that they allow the diminishing of the lights. So
Yeah,
you
I
could
think,
look
but
into that.
the building that was mentioned, I think those lights are on, if I'm not mistaken, all night. But maybe we have a curfew as to when lights can be on. I mean, most, if those lights are on at 3 and 4 in the morning, do they need to be on at 3 or 4 in the morning, for example? Just a thought. The other thing is, I understand that to distinguish between lighting that's decorative and lighting that's perhaps for pedestrian safety. Do we distinguish on the kind of lighting or what the purpose is? Because perhaps some lighting is necessary to light up an area that otherwise would be dark for pedestrians to walk. If you walk in Coral Gables without good lighting, it's treacherous at night sometimes. That's something for you all to look at or consider. The other part is, for second reading, not now, but second reading, could you let me know or let us know what I guess it's Kelvin, is for the street lights on Lejeune and Ponce?
Yes.
Because if we have street lights that are of a certain strength of light, and that's something to consider, because I have a feeling that those lights, we probably can't do anything about it, but there's a certain level of intensity as well. I'd love to get a bigger picture as to what all the lighting is, the impact. And then finally, go ahead.
Let me help you out there a little bit, because I understand your problem. Color is Kelvin. Intensity is lumens.
Okay.
Lumens, 100-watt bulb or a 60-watt bulb. But if you have all different colors going down a street,
Yeah.
then it's going to look like, as Dr. Bernal called it, a carnival.
Yeah.
So
the Vice Mayor is right. So could you let me know about Kelvin and lumens?
Yes.
Okay, and then finally,
if, for instance, on the top of the plaza, it's the number of bulbs, because the more bulbs you have, the more lumens are up there. Do you need all those bulbs in there, and are they dimmable? They might be dimmable. Just put a dimmer switch in. It would be that simple.
and then finally, what's the impact on the Biltmore?
Oh, no impact. I was just showing an example of the
Okay.
top of the building and the ground floor of the building.
Because people really, I think, love the way the Biltmore's lit up at night, the different colors for different themes, like we do with City Hall, but it's sort of an iconic image. And I just wanted to ask if there was any impact to the Biltmore.
No,
Okay.
we've heard the same thing, that's a very
All
good
right.
example of how to light a building.
Okay,
so
perfect. I'm
use that as a
supportive
model.
of the legislation. Thank you.
So I don't know if I moved it. I already had a second, so I'll move it.
Sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. Moving on to item, thank you very much. Item F1.
F1 is a resolution of the City Commission establishing a Veterans with Disabilities Relief Grant Fund for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 and directing city staff to identify a source of funding.
So I had a resident reach out to me last year and said, the city should do a little bit more for our veterans. And in discussions with staff, we realized the county has a exemption program for disabled veterans, which we would be able to create a grant fund similar to our senior relief grant fund for our disabled veterans. Disabled veterans, in many cases, do not qualify for Social Security benefits, and they're basically living on their pension. I know one resident who qualifies under this category, and he lives on $1,100 a month check, which makes it very difficult to live with our growing expenses. So I had discussed with staff about obtaining the list from the county, and we started working backwards to see if there was something we would be able to create. bringing this forward prior to the end of the fiscal year, just like we did with the Senior Relief Grant Program last year. This would benefit 97 individuals, I believe was 96? 86. 86 individuals in the city, and they would be receiving a $100 check. We also have the Senior Relief Grant Program, which is item F2, which we'll be bringing up to approve both programs today.
If I may, Diana Gomez, Finance Director. So the listing that I have as of a date in August, which still has to be updated, had 86 of the veterans and 235 seniors. So, but I do have to obtain an updated list from the county. So it may change plus or minus a few.
So I'd like to share with you from my last Green Corridor meeting a copy of a program called Catalyst. Okay. And I'd like you to entertain a friendly amendment to include in the mailing a copy of this flyer to each and every one of both the veterans and the seniors. Catalyst provides free insulation to homeowners that meet a certain financial requirement. And reportedly, it reduces electric bills, this insulation program, by 25% to 50%. It's worth $900 to $1,000 actual cost. It costs the program a little more because they track also the savings on the electricity afterwards. This is money that is paid by the Y Green PACE program, and I'd like to co-sponsor with you this item because I think this would be a great benefit. The program is being funded now. The program will be restarted within 2 weeks, so if this goes out in the mail, then to the seniors as well as the veterans, they will be able to be first in line. I mean, because it's a waiting list to get on there. So if they can go ahead and get the installation work done, it'll be tremendous savings for them. It'll be like 9 or 10 checks in the mail as opposed to just $100.
I'll accept that friendly amendment and make the motion. I think this is phenomenal. I think we should also, maybe for next year, start looking into other potential programs that help our benefits and our veterans and include them in a formal package that maybe we can include and send to our veterans so that they know where the resources are. And I'll be happy to work on that and put it together.
Right. There's working on the Y Green PACE to expand what can be done. Okay, and Latin Builders Association is, the entity that's working on those additional things. I've talked about air conditioning units and stuff like that. Insulation is wonderful, but if you don't have air conditioning to bring the temperatures down from 94, 95 degrees, and you have health issues, et cetera, I mean that kind of heat can kill. So I've worked on some of that. That's going to be a short program because that was something as a result of Commissioner Cabrera's efforts on the County Commission to bring that forward for the PACE program to do that for individuals with financial needs. So we'll have to work with our county commissioners because they have to nominate the individuals that would be eligible to receive. So these listings could be, again, provided to our county commissioners and say, please, these folks are in your district, please put them on your list to receive the benefits of this additional program that the Y Green PACE corridor is providing. So,
Can I get a motion?
I moved it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fernandez, but I don't have a second.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Mayor, I have a member of the public requesting to speak on the item.
Okay.
Mrs. Maria Cruz.
Yeah,
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
I am supportive of this legislation. Hearing about this reminds me of that we need to start thinking about what we're going to do with our retirees. And maybe next commission meeting, we can have a discussion to see if there's a game plan or, I hate for them to come up and fill this commission room again and us not have a plan beforehand. So, but I'm very, very supportive of this.
Just Commissioner, on that point, remember, those considerations have to be made during that hearing because it's only part of that process. So just keep that in mind, and we can talk about it more as we get closer to that.
All right, Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Menendez.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Castro.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Mayor Lago.
Yes. Moving on to F2.
F2 is a resolution of the City Commission establishing a senior relief grant fund for fiscal year 23-24 and directing city staff to identify a source of funding.
So this is the Senior Relief Grant Program that we approved last year. Once again, it's a list based off of the county's senior exemption, and 235 is the number for this year. I think last year we had 263. It's a smaller group this year, but again, it's a group that definitely could use the assistance, and it's part of this year's budget. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Second.
Just a quick question, just for the record. What's the total amount of assistance?
So if it's $100 per person, $23,500 for the seniors.
Once a year, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I have a member of the public requesting to speak on the item. Ms. Maria Cruz.
Again, I'd like to have this flyer included. I want to.
So amended.
Yeah, no, I just, and I co-sponsor it for that reason, because I want to continue to bring it to, to the seniors what's available through the Y Green PACE program.
Vice Mayor, do you have this in a PDF that we can provide to staff, or?
I already did.
Okay, perfect.
It's actually in a JPEG, but we can convert it.
That's what I meant. It's some kind of electronic version, yeah.
Yeah, the clerk has it, and, our commission aides have it.
Perfect.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Castro.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez.
Yes.
Mayor Lago.
Yes. Moving on to F3.
Okay, let's see. We need a commission aide here to assist with the presentation.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor,
Good morning.
Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Nora Troches, Assistant Commission Liaison. I would like to thank the Vice Mayor for giving me the opportunity to present on such an important topic as dog waste. I believe it is very important to inform our community on the importance of scooping the poop. So here we have a short presentation. So what's the big deal? So dog waste can negatively impact our health, and it can negatively impact our environment. With many factors environmental, we have water pollution, nutrient overload, and air quality concerns. Pet waste contains harmful pathogens like bacteria and parasites, including E. coli, which can contaminate the water bodies, which ultimately leads to the Biscayne Bay, which is one of the local bays that we have here. The nutrients in pet waste, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus, contribute to the over-fertilization of water bodies, leading to algal blooms. These blooms deplete oxygen in water, harming fish and other aquatic organisms. Organisms. This also impacts our air quality because decomposing pet waste releases ammonia and other harmful gases, which contribute to poor air quality and can exacerbate respiratory conditions. Despite having an environmental concern, it also adds to our public health concerns. There's many different disease transmissions from humans and dogs. With the humans, pet waste harbors various pathogens that are harmful to humans, such as roundworms and hookworms. And then with the dogs, it contains canine parvovirus, which is a highly contagious and potentially deadly viral disease that can be transmitted through the dog feces. It also gets infested because pet waste attracts rats, which are drawn to the food particles and nutrients it contains. It can increase the risk of rat infestation in yards and urban areas. So not only does it impact our public health and our environment, but it's also impacting our social and our community impact. It can cause neighborhood conflicts. Pet waste left in somebody else's yard
can truly anger a resident. Leaving it in shared spaces like a park or a sidewalk, and complaints and stuff like that. And then it can also damage our grass. A lot of people believe that dog waste is a fertilizer. It is not a fertilizer. It can ultimately contaminate your grass. And so there are many efforts that municipalities and states have been doing in order to help with this ongoing situation. And I know that the city of Coral Gables has been doing a really good job at trying to reduce the dog waste in the areas, such as campaigns. I know Martha and her team have been working on creating some signs that the residents can request to the city so that they can place on their trash pit, And I believe that if we hold public educational campaigns, like maybe for Adventure Day, set up a booth with those signs, providing them to the residents can be very impactful. I believe not a lot of residents know about the negative impact that dog waste has on the trash pits. And as well as all of this information has also been added to the city website, as well as the regulation and fines. There's a civic penalty of $500 for depositing trash per Chapter 54 of the City Code. So I believe making this aware to the residents that this is an ongoing issue, I believe this would help reduce the amount of dog waste that we have around the trash pits. Gabby and I, we went 30 minutes around, this area. We found about 15 trash pits with many dog waste within about 30 minutes. So I believe holding public educational campaigns, adding more waste dispensers, which I believe that not too long ago we got some donated. So I believe maintaining them and, keeping them pretty and clean will allow residents to continue scooping the poop. And so, the most responsible thing pet owners can do for the family, for the community, and for our city beautiful is to pick up after their dog waste. Thank you.
So I'm going to add to this explanation as to the whys. And because you do have the leaching down into the soil, you're going to be having pathogens go down to the waterway. When our trash crews pick up, the bags will fall to the ground, on the street. So I've had staff work on some different designs for the signs that have a QR code on them that'll lead to information, including the fine. So I'm going to talk to you all about the fine. I was expecting, when staff came back with what the fine is, something that was a little more gradual, like riding your bike on the mile, a stepped program. You get a warning, you get a one step of a fine, the next step of a fine, etc. But when it led back to a $500 fine, I said, well, that's a sledgehammer. And plus, it only really applies to people that dump in other people's trash pits, not your own. So it doesn't really solve the problem. So I have asked staff, who was, under the impression originally that we had this type of stepped ordinance, to come back with that for the next commission meeting so we can do these signs. I've also asked staff to confer with the sanitation employees about the signs, because typically what you have is a homeowner that's annoyed by the dog waste, put a cardboard sign or some homemade sign near the trash pit and saying, please put it down the way. So we'll make something Coral Gables branded that's not going to be ugly, but ask staff, do you want it on a post? And where would you like it placed so it doesn't interfere with trash pickup? So we'll get feedback from staff on that, and then I'll work on, what's it going to cost? How are we going to pay for it? I'll deal with that headache in the next step. This is unfortunately going to be a process. And for those who don't like signs, we can make it pretty. We already have signs. We have the dog waste bins with signs on them. This is just a reminder to folks, it's against our code, and here's the health risks of continuing to do that. Because that once upon a time, I didn't realize the risks either. Okay, and then once I realized the risks, I started putting the dog waste in a pot, and then I would throw, when I take out my garbage bag, I then would dump it into the, regular garbage bag that would go. And now we have dog waste bins, so I put it there. Do you have any comments?
Just very good presentation. You did a great job.
She did. She
Thank
did.
you.
It's first time for everything.
Yeah, it was very, very good.
You guys can challenge her on future presentations.
Yeah.
We're going to get her polished and
Very
experienced.
soothing voice, too.
Mhm.
Captured my attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excuse me.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item F4.
Following my last commission recap, I had quite a few questions about Burger Bob's and when's an opening, and actually it's now Birdie's Bistro was the final name, so I think a lot of people are not aware that the name was already selected, so just wanted an update on what, where we are, what to expect, and when we can start eating.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Seda Sardinez, Asset Manager. Okay, I have a quick presentation that I put together just to show you. If we can bring that up. Awesome.
It's up.
There we go. So on July 9th, the City Commission approved the lease, and the lease was executed by both parties by July 25th. The tenant paid the security deposit on September 6th. The city is assisting the tenant in their efforts to obtain Florida Department of Professional Regulation and Miami-Dade County licensing and operating permits, which is an ongoing process. The DBPR food establishment license has been approved with conditions pending inspections as of September 18th. The tenant also has applied for the certificate of use and the Miami-Dade County certificate of use and the Derm Fog grease trap operating permit. The tenant is also in the process of obtaining insurance for the premises as required by the lease. The general contractor has passed all final inspections. I had put in here that they had requested certificate of occupancy, which should be granted this week along with final completion certification. But I was just informed by Sherry Shang that this morning Development Services issued the certificate of occupancy for the diner. So we're definitely happy. Should have final completion certification this week, which just requires some additional paperwork per the contract with the general contractor. Pursuant to the contract, the city will turn the keys of the premises over to the tenant in 5 days from today, and they will have 30 days from today until they're required to start paying rent. Community Recreation's in the process of coordinating a ribbon cutting. I believe you all got an email yesterday and your commission aides to do a Granada Golf Course Pro Shop and Restaurant Building ribbon cutting for early November. And that'll include the tenants' participation. The participants will be able to walk through the restaurant. And we are hoping that that will also coincide with her being able to have her licensing and being able to open.
Yeah, I didn't receive an invite, so maybe they can forward that to me.
I think they, Carolina Vester, the Deputy
I'm
Community
checking again.
Recreation, she circulated it to the commission aides in order to check your calendars, in order to be able, and gave some dates out yesterday.
Okay, beautiful.
To see what works best.
I just, a question is that, it might be a typo. It's not Boogie Grill, like, we're going to boogie on down for lunch, but that's Bogey, right?
Yes, it is. Sorry, I missed the,
I'm
yes.
sure once it's open, we'll all be boogie on down
It was
to,
with the O, and one place it has two O's.
But the name is Birdie's Bistro. So
Okay.
you don't have to worry about
Sorry.
it.
no, it's all right, couldn't help myself.
Okay, I have some pictures here
That
for
looks
you
nice.
guys to look at.
Nice.
Very soothing, very nice.
Very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kitchen or the back across the counter. This is the coffee area. And then the back of the house.
And the difference, I mean, it's a full operating kitchen with a walk-in freezer, things that weren't there before.
Absolutely.
And I think the grease trap was also an issue that got resolved. So basically, somebody told me, some long-term Coral Gables resident, that facility originally wasn't meant to have a restaurant. They were sort of retrofitted a meeting room into a place to dine. Now we're actually the city has taken amazing steps forward to make it what everybody wants it to be, but fully operational, which is great.
Yes, and observing things like ADA compliance and all of that, which is definitely important for us.
I asked the city managers, once it's open, since we get lunch, once they're open and fully operating, if perhaps we could have our commission lunch from Birdie's Bistro.
Sounds fantastic idea.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
F5?
All right, F5, I've been hearing more and more about this issue over the last probably month. I know staff has as well. When construction is taking place, there is a bond that's taken out with the city in order to address any potential damages to city infrastructure during construction. The issue that has come about from some residents is they were expecting the city to reimburse them this bond, but apparently in some cases, the contractor has been the one who has made the payment on their behalf, and the residents are not getting the money back. Obviously, that's an issue between the contractor and the resident. The reason I put this on the agenda, I wanted to see how we can, I don't know if it's maybe changing the process to require that it be submitted by the resident so that the resident gets the money back, whether it's engaging in a PSA campaign so that people are aware that this construction bond is reimbursable and that it goes back to whoever submits the initial bond money. I just want to make sure that residents aren't caught in this process where, now they're expecting the city to reimburse them the money, but the money's actually going back to their contractor because it was a loophole in a contract they had with their contractor and it wasn't really outlined for them. So really wanted to have a discussion. We can maybe throw some ideas around or come back and bring it back on another date as we kind of think it through. The city attorney and the city manager brought up, in some cases, it's an added burden to residents if we're asking for the resident to make the payment. Some people don't have checks, so they're not going to give their contractor a check to turn into the city. So I kind of wanted to have that discussion, see how we can have some sort of awareness or protection for our residents.
Commissioner, if I may. One of the things we've asked Developmental Service to do because of this issue is to, number one, add language in all our permit applications concerning the bond, that there is a bond, and depending on who pays the bond is the one that will receive the reimbursement. In addition to that, I've asked them to post in the lobby of Developmental Services building that information, and we're going to add that to our e-news and our website so we can educate the folks. Some of these issues are contractor owner issues, but the key is that the city will refund the bond deposit to the person that paid, so they would have to come up with proof of payment.
So let me step in here one second. I think we're talking about something that works pretty well, but if you want to go down this rabbit hole, you might as well go down it. Madam City Attorney, in a job, when a permit is paid and a bond is paid to the city, when the job is completed and there's a CO, that's the only time a bond is released, correct?
Correct. That's when there can be a request for a refund of the bond.
Who gets the bond back?
Whoever paid the bond, so the payee of the bond. We return it to whoever paid it.
So if
You're
anybody
obligated to do that.
if anybody has a problem with the way the bond was returned, that's between the client and the construction company. If the client receives a bond and the contractor is upset about that, there shouldn't be anyone upset. The client paid for the bond. If the client asks the contractor to pay for the bond and the CO happens, the contractor's refunded the bond. It goes back to the person who paid for it. No one, and I want to correct me if I'm wrong, no one can walk in and procure a bond that was paid for a year ago by somebody else, correct?
Not paid by somebody else, that's correct.
But let me just finish. I do this all the time. So my point is that you can I'm all for providing as much notice and statements on permits and all kinds of things. I think it's great. But when you're gonna go get a permit paid for, and you're gonna get your plans approved, and you're gonna pull that permit, if a bond is required, depending on the work and scope of the project, someone's gotta pay for it. Either the owner or the contractor. So it's pretty simple. It goes back to the person who stroked the check or put the credit card down.
And again, I don't think that that was the question that was asked. And for those residents who are watching, this is not a rabbit hole that we're going down. This is a problem that we have. And of course, a contractor is going to defend contractors. I'm here to represent you, and I want to make sure that you don't have these issues going forward. So going back, I am talking. Let me finish talking. You may not. You may not. The issue is not the current issue. We cannot solve the problem for residents who are having it right now. But we can find ways, and that's what we were elected to do, to prevent the issue from happening again for our residents. Obviously, contractors are not going to want to change the process, because what's happening is there's no outlined item in a contract with a contractor that stipulates that the bond is going to be returned to the resident. The resident is giving the contractor the money with the expectation that they will be getting that money back. When they ask for the money back from the contractor, what most contractors are doing is saying, go talk to the city of Coral Gables, when they know that they have already received that check. So, calling it a rabbit hole, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, this is a real problem that real residents are having. And it is not a rabbit hole for us to have a conversation and find a way to ensure that our residents, the ones we represent, are not having this problem.
So you invoked my name, so I just want to respond very quickly. First off, in regards to when I mentioned rabbit hole, it was a figure of speech. You can't think everybody's talking about you, okay, or insulting you. When you pay for a permit and you make that permit, the contractor can never go and pick up that bond. It has to be that of the client. It's not about whether you side with the contractor or the client. In most instances that I've been involved in municipalities, I'm pretty sure going to go 90+%. The contractor does not want to carry a bond. They don't want to pay for something for a year or 2 years and have that money outlaid, just sitting out there for 2 years, not making any interest. Because you don't get paid interest on this bond, correct, Madam City Attorney? Correct?
No, there's no interest.
I want to put it on the record. Okay? I know the answer to that question, but I want to put it on the record. So what they always do, at least in my cases, is they say, literally the contractor will say, Madam Client, Mr. Client, pay for the bond. They will go and they pay for the bond, and they have to wait 2 years till the work is over, and then they get reimbursed that bond. It's not whether you side with the resident or you side with the contractor. In most cases, and if you ask our individuals over there next door in the permitting department, they'll tell you the majority of the times it's a contractor. Excuse me, the resident or the business owner that pays the bond that I've seen, and that I've been involved in my opinion. Because I don't want to have to pay this money myself. I want to have the resident pay for it. So what I'm trying to figure out, I was just trying to say, is what is the confusion that we're trying to fix here? Because when I've spoken to people, they've told me, hey, I don't remember if I paid that bond. Oh, well, then you got to go and speak to Development Services to find out if you paid for that bond or if somebody else paid for that bond. But at the end of the day, that bond will not be released. It will be only provided to the entity that paid for the bond in the beginning. And nobody wants to float a bond and have $10,000, $5,000, $20,000 sitting in escrow and not making any interest at the end of the day. Okay. Madam Vice Mayor, you were saying something.
So I'm going to throw in a couple of suggestions here. There's many different stages of a project. You have your final inspection. We have the beginning part where you have notice to owner. There's opportunities to inform residents of the fact that, a bond is posted. You can request an offset on your final payment, before no lien affidavit is issued. There's opportunities for residents to, enforce their rights with the contractor, because if the contractor included in the price of the job, the bond, $1,000, $500, whatever it is, okay, at the end of the day, if the contractor is going to get the money back, then you offset it on the final payment. So there's a couple points that we can remind, and, I know that in if you look at the notice requirements, the Y Green PACE program is supposed to provide people and does provide people. There's several touch points in which you remind people because people forget. You sign up at the beginning, you forget the day comes that you have to pay for that loan. You know, if the project takes longer, the interest rate changes. So we can have a touch point at the beginning when you're applying for the permit for the job, the application process, and then at a point, I think, for the final inspection, because those are the two most important points. Who's going to pay for the bond, and who's going to get the money back, and how you're going to get the money back. And an offset on your final payment is the easiest way, I think, for most homeowners and most contractors to address this issue.
If I may, Vice Mayor, the Developmental Services Assistant Director wants to make a statement. Go ahead. Clarify the issue of how we are notifying the folks.
Good morning. Doug Ramirez, Deputy Director of Development Services. Currently, we are working on adding some verbiage to the permit application, the very first page of the permit application, where typically the owner or the owner's representative signs authorizing for the work to be done. We've gotten the verbiage approved by our legal department. It's just a matter now of working with our IT department to add it to the application. We hope to have it done very shortly. At least there's a touch point at the beginning. At the end, what we can do is we do have automated emails that the system sends out when your permit's about to expire or when your permit is. We can add verbiage in there as well. And now we have the owner's information in our system. So when the permit is applied for at the beginning, at some point before we issue the permit, we have the owner's email information or the owner's representative, some person that is responsible. So the owner will be notified, and we can also tweak the verbiage of the email that goes out at the end. And if desired, I mean, we could even add it at every single email along the way so that they see it again and again and again. They might get tired of seeing it, but I'd rather they see it more than less, where we can inform them, hey, the bond will be returned to the payee of the bond, not necessarily the owner of the property. That way there's knowledge throughout the process they can't forget.
And Mr. Director.
Yes, sir.
This is not the first time we do this. I remember a few years ago, we put in the past certain items on the permit. I can't remember what it was, but it was certain things that we recommended in regards to cleanliness or fencing or, oh no, you know what it was? That residential work can't happen on Saturdays. I think we put certain things on the permit so that people, when they pull their permit, they were reminded, hey, listen, there's a list of things that you can and can't do. So just add it to the list. But at the end of the day, it's clear. Whoever pays for the permit has to come back for that permit. You can't give it to somebody else that's not there, that they paid for it. So at the end of the day, no contractor, no resident, you just can't pick up somebody else's bond. Now, what you could do, if you want to, which I would welcome it, which goes against everything my colleague to my left just said, I would welcome it, 110%. See if we can work with our attorney and see if we can only allow residents to pay for the bond, so that they are assured that the bond goes to them. I don't want to pay for a bond. I don't want to outlay money for 2 years, a year and a half, that kind of time, whatever money that is. In certain projects, they're pretty significant. I'd rather have the resident pay for it, just like what happens when you sign a permit card. You have two options. Either the resident pays for it or the contractor pays for it. But why would you want to have the contractor pay for it when you can benefit from paying for it yourself in one form or another? So I don't know if that's even allowed, if there's maybe a state statute that preempts us from doing that, and I don't know. But if it's a concern here, at the end of the day, just make the resident pay for it. Perfectly fine. They just have to hold it for 2 years.
I received a phone call last week regarding the same matter, and it seems to be very important. This resident in specific was raising concerns also about that there's no procedures in automatically refunding a bond. So if the resident completely forgets that they paid for a bond, it's just gonna sit here. And it's interesting to me because I'm like, how is that even possible? Because at the end of the year, we need to reconcile our monies. How are we not noticing that there's bonds that are not being returned? We need to work on a procedure and we'll brainstorm together, but so that bonds are automatically refunded, or at least they're contacted, whoever's whoever's paying for the bond. I would feel more comfortable with the resident paying for the bond, because with the same resident that I spoke with, the contractor asked them for the money to pay for the bond, and when he came to ask for the bond, they said they couldn't return it to the resident, they had to return it to the contractor. That raises major concerns to me. So let's see how we could improve this process.
Quick question. How many bonds do you currently have waiting to be picked up or claimed?
I don't have that exact number.
Can we maybe get that info
We can get the number.
through the
yes.
manager's office? I'd love to see how much unclaimed money there is. Just like there's unclaimed money in the federal government and the state, billions of dollars that are unclaimed. Madam Vice Mayor?
So you might want to look at what the Miami-Dade County Clerk is doing. Mr. Barquin has started an unclaimed assets piece because in some litigation, there's money on hand that's being held by the court registry and it hasn't been dispersed when the case is over. Well, this is similar. You have a matter that's closed and the monies haven't been released. So there's a notification procedure for folks to make that claim on the money. Reminding them it's out there. We all forget, and I've had to do unclaimed money requests on behalf of my in-laws, on my father, et cetera, because some check that was mailed to the correct address but never received was an unclaimed asset. So for that reason, the money had to be claimed through the state process.
Earlier this year, we began an outreach when we realized that there was a backlog. I don't have the number, but we knew that there was one there. We started reaching out to the contacts in the permits. We started with the newest ones going backwards, and we started with the oldest ones going forwards. We've made a dent into it. This year, we've refunded over 500 bonds. But a lot of the older permits, nobody's responding. Obviously, some of the contractors might have folded up or left the state, who knows, but nobody's responding. So we did start an outreach to try and go back to the people, hey, by the way, we have your money, we would like to give it back. We're working at that list. We also, we began now we're getting a reminder. We set up our Energov system to send us a reminder when a permit is closed so that we can proactively start working on the refund now that it got closed now. We just started doing that now. I don't have the numbers that you asked for at this moment, but overall I can tell you that we are making the effort to get this money back to the people that it belongs to. And we will continue to work on this with legal and then per your direction.
So if we work like an automated mechanism that automatically refunds, I don't know what that would look like. Probably like an Energov sends a reminder, sends an alert, as you're saying, when the permit is closed, and then maybe have it trigger a notice or have it trigger mail. You tell me.
We did look into also like some way of automating the payback. Unfortunately, we don't keep the financial information. So if you paid with a credit card, we don't keep that because obviously, as great as our IT department is, we can be liable for that information and then somebody could hack it or whatever. So we don't keep it. It would be really easy if there was a way for us to just return it to the credit card that paid it whenever it was. But unfortunately, that we don't have a way of doing that. So it requires reaching out, getting a hold of somebody, having them show us proof of how it was paid. And then once we have some demonstrated proof, then we know who to pay back.
So then can we regulate the way of payment? If we cannot trace back, we cannot refund the credit card that paid with it, well, can we only accept checks?
That would be a legal question.
I think we can. The concern is I think that would perhaps, cause it's not a legal issue, but it perhaps cause an inconvenience for residents who, in some cases, maybe want their contractor to hire or a permit expediter or someone to handle the entire process for them. And so if you require only checks or if you require that it be only from the resident, I could see that being just a practical concern.
Yeah, and if I may, just another point I think was important because we were talking about residents versus contractors. When a contractor pulls a bond, or even considers pulling a bond, we have no interest. I don't have an interest in pulling a bond, zero. Because by the formula, the way that we break down the construction of a project is by divisions. And when you look at your insurance, as Joe is shaking his head because he knows very well, and so does our other DCM know, you don't include a bond or insurance, and you can't make profit on that. That's below the line. That's not top line, that's below the line. So what ends up happening, that lags in the bottom. You can't put profit on your insurance, and you can't put profit on your bond. So that just sits there. It's an expense for the contractor. The bigger question you have here is if the contractor asks the resident to pay for the bond, to give me the money for the bond, I've never done this, and then they keep that money after. The problem is, how do you stop that? How do you stop the contractor to tell the resident, hey, give me the money for the bond? They go to the city, they order the bond, and then the bond sits there for 2 years, and then when it's over, the resident's forgotten, the business owner's forgotten, and then they get the bond, the project is CO'd, they get the bond, and they keep the $500, $1,000, the $10,000, whatever the bond amount may be. Does that happen? Maybe, yeah, but it never happened to me. And I don't know if somebody would do that. I mean, that would be stealing from your client. But I've never had an issue, and I've been here 12 years. What I have seen is people tell me, Vince, I didn't know that I had gotten a bond. I had forgotten that I had gotten a bond. And it just sat there for 2 or 3 years. And then my response is, go see Doug, sit down with Doug, have a conversation. He can research it for you, and you can find out if you have an existing bond in your project. That's the cleanest way of doing things. Madam Vice Mayor.
So I have a couple questions for legal, but as a lawyer, what I would do is I would require a discount on my contract for the bond, because I know that the bond's going back to you. On the back end here, we have this problem with unclaimed assets. And there are similar procedures in state government as far as how unclaimed assets are dealt with. And I'd ask that, we consider that if it's not claimed by the contractor, can we, by default, then reimburse the homeowner? Give it a certain period of time, you don't claim it, okay? And then what do we do if still the homeowner doesn't claim it? What do we do with those unclaimed funds?
So, Vice Mayor, we have a code provision that addresses these bonds, and it currently states that if it's not claimed within a certain period of time after the closeout of the permit and final inspection, that essentially it basically is forfeited to the city.
Okay.
So we can look at that if there's any changes that need to be made there, but that's what it currently states, that it is forfeited to the city for the administrative, costs and services of the city.
All right. So, I mean, if you wouldn't mind circulating that to all of us so we can, read it and be familiar, I'd appreciate it.
So the issue that has arisen with the residents that have approached me is exactly what the mayor was stating, where the contractor has asked for the money, they've put the money in the bond, and then they've kept the money. So as far as investment, it's 100% return for that contractor. And that's where I think we need to have some sort of protection. Mr. Clerk, what I would like to do is put this on the agenda, maybe the second October meeting, so that everybody has time to really talk to staff, and maybe we can have a little more fruitful conversation as to potential options that we can have, and that gives staff and the city attorney's office enough time to properly vet, what the process is, maybe in other municipalities, and how we can tweak ours to add some protections for residents.
Have a member of the public requesting to speak on the item.
Okay.
Mrs. Maria Cruz.
Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road. I'm so glad that this came up. Bonds are not necessarily for big buildings for thousands of dollars. When I moved my septic tank to the front, I had no idea that I had a bond. And all of a sudden, I got a check in the mail from the septic tank people. And I called them and said, what is this money about? Oh, when you signed, there was a bond, and we just got it back. Okay, we have to remember that we have a large population of people that are not in the building business, that are not attorneys, that rely on the person that's going to be doing their work for them. They come in and they say, how much money do I need to give you? And they give them the money. Okay, they don't sit down and say, okay, this is for this is for that, this is, okay. I have an idea, and I've discussed it before, I'm gonna bring it up again. We have issues with permits that are not closed. My idea is that perhaps we should start thanking the owner for closing the permit. You know, something to the effect that, thank you very much for making sure your permit is closed. If there is a bond, it is reimbursable. Whoever paid for it needs to come and claim it. Do not force the owners to pull the permits and to bring the money for the bond, because you have a whole bunch of people that are not going to do that. They rely on the person or the contractor or whoever is doing it for doing that process. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But if you thank them for making sure the permit is closed, and you relay the message that, if there's a bond, the bond is reimbursable now, whoever paid should come and claim it. And that would make it easy for them.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
If you would be so kind, next time when you bring this back, there was a comment made about that we have a lot of existing permits that are open. Will you provide the commission with the exact number of permits that are open as per the system?
Of course, we'll be happy to do that.
Understanding was that you, along with other members, previously had addressed a lot of the existing open permits. That was the task.
We have, and we continue to.
I believe there's 60-something left.
60-something, but that was
in the old system.
In the old system.
Yes.
So I remember that Tsunami had addressed a lot of that. There was like 7,000, 8,000 permits, and you guys went and attacked that for a long time.
There's been a monumental effort. In the old system, we're down to very few numbers. In the current system, of course, new permits, there's quite a few more.
Yes, so I congratulate you on that effort. Okay. All right.
Excuse me, Mayor, if maybe the commission would indulge me with an approval for a pocket item, it'll be really quick.
I'm open.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
It depends on how big the pocket is.
No, it's pretty short.
Don't pick her pocket.
I want to go ahead and talk about the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. A couple meetings ago, we spoke about Live Like Bella. The fire department and the union got together. There was a presentation here for child cancer awareness. The shirts are for sale. They're $15. There we go. There's different ways of purchasing them. You could Zelle the union. There's a phone number. If you get your phone out, you could just scan the barcode. That is Venmo. And if you just want to do a donation without a shirt, you could just donate directly to Live Like Bella. All proceeds, the city is not staying with anything, go to Live Like Bella. That's what the shirt looks like. And if you go ahead and take that off for a second, Billy, please.
Take it off, okay.
There we go.
And cable TV, take it off.
Okay. I am wearing a Live Like Bella shirt. Okay, so you could dress it up, dress it down. I'll show you what the back looks like.
Yes, the hair.
There you go. Beautiful. Support them as much as we can. We know that this is a very unfortunate disease, and I'm pretty sure this whole population that's affected by this disease would appreciate it. If the one last thing is, if you do make a donation, you could go and pick up the shirt in the city commission office. And thank you to De La Rosa and David, if you want to come up and say a few words.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Commissioner, for bringing this up before the Commission. You know, during your August meeting, the city decided to unanimously support Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So thank you, all of you, for supporting that. As part of this awareness effort, we, the union, have been going around all month long asking individuals in the public and our local hospitals to participate in the effort. So I wanted to take this opportunity to thank our local hospitals, Coral Gables Hospital, South Miami Doctors Hospital for really supporting the effort. We've been at this for a month. They've bought a lot of T-shirts, and I'm happy to be able to do this on behalf of the city and also on behalf of the organization. So thank you again for bringing this up. We appreciate the help.
Thank you. De La Rosa, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, thank you very much. So I'd like to echo our thanks to support in our community and from this commission. As you've seen on our social media accounts, and we discussed it up here, this is a struggle and a tragedy that hits home with one of our fire lieutenants' child suffering from cancer and having to move his family to St. Jude's Hospital for several months. So this one definitely hits home, as does all cancers in our family. And I don't think there's anyone that hasn't been struck by one form of cancer or another one, but certainly this one does. So our firefighters have been wearing the yellow for the whole month, and we're probably going to culminate the month with a fire truck parade to all the children's hospitals in Miami-Dade County and Broward, and just stand outside the building and let them know that they're recognized and that, you know, we're looking out for them. So thank you again for pointing that out and for our community's support towards this valiant effort as we enter October and we start with breast cancer.
And Chief, thank you very much for allowing for the department to participate in this. I also think since you're here, it's important to recognize your team for their efforts yesterday with that individual who crashed through the barricade in the parking garage, landed on a tree. The incredible work done by our team, Miami-Dade and Miami, working together showed how great we can work together in this community. And what a great level of service our first responders offer our community. So thank you.
I want to share a very private story, and I think it really merits it. My daughter, several months ago, was diagnosed with MS, and I have to say that has been a very big struggle for me. And I can not only imagine a younger child of mine or anybody else's being diagnosed with cancer. So I sincerely, and I kind of beg everyone, please support this organization. And I invite all my colleagues to buy a shirt, please. And it'll be here in the City Commission.
So I probably won't buy a shirt, but I'll donate. So
beautiful, thank you.
Commissioner, if I can just add, this wasn't something that just Coral Gables did. I want to mention that other departments also jumped on this community effort. Miami-Dade Fire, Hialeah Fire, and their respective unions also joined in the awareness effort on the issue. So I want to thank you all again for officially participating. We appreciate all the help. Thank you so much.
So I do have an ask for you. On October 18th and 19th at the Biltmore, we do have the Ronald McDonald fundraiser occurring. Coming out wearing your shirts.
Okay.
Because I think the two projects complement each other. Because Ronald McDonald House provides us housing for the families undergoing, you know, these very tragic situations with their children needing surgeries and so forth. And I know the mayor's been a staunch supporter of that and every other cause that comes in to help children on health reasons. I'd like to see if we can all collaborate and do what we can for our community, support both causes at the same time, because this is a wonderful cause and both will help each other.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to, through the mayor, like to indulge me on Commissioner Fernandez's comments. I'd like to personally recognize our firefighters yesterday. Yes, City of Miami was there, and they added their support. Miami-Dade was instrumental in providing their technical support on how we were going to safely remove that car from that parking garage, not let it slam onto the street, cause more damage. There wasn't a life safety issue at that time, so their expertise, having a unique resource like having a wrecker of that size, they were instrumental to our command structure to make sure that whatever the private company was doing was safe and effective, was not going to risk anyone's life, and it wasn't going to further destroy property. But I really like to recognize how efficient, how effective our firefighters secured that vehicle to make sure that lady was safe, then devised the rope rescue that we did to safely remove her from the car. And it just is a testament to the investment that we have, whether it's through our city funds or grant funding towards the training and development and equipping of our folks. And they did a phenomenal job. For a lot of us, that's a once-in-a-lifetime rescue. For that lady, I'm sure, I hope it's one in a lifetime for her. But, you know, everything came into effect that day, including, you know, Vice Mayor Anderson, you're a true advocate for green spaces and trees, and I think that tree played the most intricate role in that rescue.
We have strong trees in Coral Gables.
If you look at it, it's not exactly a oak that you see on Coral Way, but it managed to just buy us enough time to render that rescue. So I really like to recognize our folks. Our neighboring partners were great assets to us, but the heavy lifting was done by our firefighters, and I couldn't have been any prouder of them and the folks that have trained and developed them. It was certainly a significant return on our investment.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The first thing that went through my mind was, thank God for that tree, right? And then the second one was, she could have gotten out through the trunk.
No.
Yes,
No.
maybe, no?
No, that car was a delicate balance where, for me at least, I was kind of shocked that when fire paramedic Feldman harnessed her, basically married her to his harness, and when he removed her out of the car, just if you look at it in a comparison to how much that car weighs, her weight is really insignificant. And just the removal of the car, you saw the car shift. And, you know, it kind of gave you that tense moment there. So definitely she did the right thing by staying put and listening to our directions and being calm and patient enough to let us secure the vehicle to the building and then conduct the rope rescue that was conducted.
And Commissioner, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I could add, the way that car was perched, I asked the same question, can't she just get out of the trunk? And the way it was perched, the trunk couldn't open because the garage ceiling wouldn't let that trunk pop open. So that's why, you know, to the fire chief's comment. So
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, Mrs. Maria Cruz would like to make comment on the item.
Mrs. Maria Cruz, 1447 Miller Road. I'm so happy that Vice Mayor brought up Ronald McDonald's house. For years, our Kiwanis clubs have been saving the flip tops on the cans, and all it takes is for somebody to save them. We put them in containers, and we drop them off, and they get money out of it. I don't know how the process goes, but I know that we get letters, our members go and deliver. I have several containers in my kitchen as we speak, and they get a letter saying, thank you, because of your donation will help us run a McDonald's house. So I'm so glad that you brought it up.
All right, Mr. Clerk. Moving on to item H1.
H1 is a resolution of the City Commission accepting a recommendation to waive the competitive process of the procurement code and purchase an additional 6 LifePak 15 systems for $285,318.12 as a sole source procurement pursuant to Section 2-689 of the city's procurement code.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. Moving on to H2.
H2 is a resolution of the City Commission accepting the recommendation of the Chief Procurement Officer to award RFP 2024-20 Group Medical Insurance Services to Cigna Health and Life Insurance Company, the highest ranked responsive and responsible proposer pursuant to Section 2-763 of the Procurement Code entitled Contract Award and Request for Proposal 2024-20.
Second.
Questions? There was a
We're good.
motion and a second, but I'm
I got the
sorry, we were
motion
a
and the
little-
second. I'm just waiting to see if Celeste's going to make
Oh,
a
you want to
presentation.
speak? No.
Pretty
Quit
clear.
while you're ahead.
Pretty clear.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. Item H3.
H3 is a resolution of the City Commission accepting the recommendation of the Chief Procurement Officer to award RFP 2024-21 Group Life Insurance with AD&D to Standard Insurance Company, the highest ranked responsive and responsible proposer pursuant to Section 2-763 of the Procurement Code entitled Contract Award and Request for Proposal 2024-21.
Move it.
Second.
Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. H4.
H4 is a resolution of the City Commission accepting the recommendation of the Chief Procurement Officer to award RFP 2024-19 Group Vision Insurance to Humana Insurance Company, the highest ranked responsive and responsible proposer pursuant to Section 2-763 of the Procurement Code entitled Contract Award and Request for Proposal 2024-19.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Clerk.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. Moving on to H5.
H5 is a resolution of the City Commission accepting the recommendation of the Chief Procurement Officer to award RFP 2024-22 Group Dental Insurance to Humana Insurance Company, the highest ranked responsive and responsible proposer pursuant to Section 2-763 of the Procurement Code entitled Contract Award and Request for Proposal 2024-22.
Entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work. Item H6.
H6 is a resolution of the City Commission adopting the city's 2025 legislative priorities.
Fernando?
I think everybody's pretty familiar with it.
I've got an item to add.
I think our intergovernmental affairs manager will be here too. There he is.
There it is.
I ran out quickly. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Fernando Wiener, Government Affairs Manager for the city. If you'll allow me, I'd like to talk through our priorities. I'll be as brief as I can, but I think it's worth discussing so we give some context as to why we chose these priorities for the city. So before we begin, I just want to make two quick comments. Usually there are appropriations projects that we include with this priorities list, and that will be forthcoming. We were a little faster this year in preparing our priorities because a couple of the commissioners, Commissioner Fernandez, Commissioner Castro, and Vice Mayor Anderson, as well as some staff members, Chelsea Grinnell from the mayor's office, and I will be participating in the FLC committees that are upcoming next week on October 4th. So we just wanted to set our priorities before we headed out. And then also, we have more time this year to prepare our projects because the legislative session doesn't begin until March, and last year began in January, so we have some time. Okay, so the second thing is the categories that you can break these priorities down into. The first being very general things like home rule. You know, we're looking out for general preemptions that deal with home rule, as well as protection of the environment, transportation, things of that sort. And then you'll see specific statutory changes that we want to make. And that has to do with something like tree removal statutes that we want to look at and make statutory changes that we'll get to specific legislatures to try and change. Okay, so we'll begin with home rule. Home rule, I think, will probably be on here every single time we have this conversation. Home rule is something that should grant broad powers to municipalities, and we want to protect the welfare, safety, and quality of life of our communities and should have a say in all of those categories. Chapter 166, bless you, of Florida statutes gives a very broad power to municipalities that should be preserved, and Florida statutes state that it should be something that is only expressly preempted by the state. So we want to look out for any time there's some kind of implied preemption and that deals in both substantive and procedural forms. So a procedural example of this is SB 170 from last year, the 2023 session. It is a statute that permits somebody to sue a city or a local government, could be a county or city, if they believe that there is an ordinance that is either arbitrary or unreasonable. And in that suit, if they ask for that ordinance to cease from being enforced, it is required that that municipality no longer enforce it until those proceedings are complete. So those kinds of procedural hurdles that we have to overcome sometimes are something that we should watch out for and resist, because that is not what the intention of the broad home rule powers that were given to the municipalities by the Florida statutes. The second item on here is protection of the environment. This is going to focus primarily with Biscayne Bay. And Mayor Lago, you made a good point in your mayoral address last week, where you were saying there's a lot of issues with outpours, and whatever we're doing to prevent those outpours is something that we should focus on. And that has a lot to do with, converting our septic systems to our sewer facilities, and also our aging sewer facilities, finding funding for them, whether it's something from the federal government or the state government or dealing with the county. And it is something that we're doing at all of those levels. From the federal government, we're seeking appropriations fundings to the tune of $1 million for the Campana and Robino force main, which is one of our southern neighborhoods next to the coastline. That force main's about 50 years old and for a long time has been needing to be renovated. From the state, there are some grant programs that we'll likely try to seek funding from. And grants are difficult because it's all competition, it's all need-based. And obviously we want those that need facilities to receive the funding, but as a city, we need to seek funding when we can. So we'll look to programs within the Department of Environmental Protection within the state. And two of the things that we'll look out for are the Biscayne Bay Water Quality Improvement Program, and then the Resilient Florida program that mitigates flood and sea level rise. And then also we'll find some projects when we come up with our appropriations projects that deal with those issues that have to do with more sewer, septic to sewer conversions or anything to do with stormwater, but we'll keep looking towards those things. The next item on here is transportation. The first bullet being probably the most important protection for all our road users. And that's something, again, that we're dealing with at the federal, state, and local level. At the federal level, there are a couple of funding options that we've been looking at as a city and have applied for funding from. Two of those programs are the Active Transportation Infrastructure Program, and that's a program that we sent in grant applications to plan out some sidewalks and bike paths, as well as a program called the Safe Streets for All program that's meant to help us install, plan out, or install any kind of safety countermeasures that we can include into our roadways, whether those are speed bumps or traffic circles or medians, whatever we need to include into our infrastructure so that road users are safe. At the state level, we get funds distributed down to the county, and then those funds are distributed down to the city based on our population. Now we have a bit of an issue with that. The 2020 census put our population under 50,000 people. So I'm in conversations with the government affairs person at the TPO to see if we can do some sort of interdecennial census. It's something that we'll have to fund as a city on our own and hopefully get that number above 50,000 so we get a representative on the TPO and increase the funds that were distributed. The next item on here is home improvements and property insurance rates. For this, we have a bunch of different programs that our residents can participate in. With the rising value of homes, the issues with insurance, that United's the only real player in Florida, and insurance rates are spiking, and their taxes are incredibly high. There are options for programs that we can provide and help guide our residents through. One of them being the My Safe Home Florida program. That's a grant program available to residents. They can either have inspections done, or once those inspections are complete, they can have a grant of up to $10,000, and the way the state will match it is they'll provide 2-to-1 funding up to $10,000. So every dollar that the resident puts into the project, the state will match it $2. And then there's a similar program that was launched this year called the My Safe Condominium Pilot Program. And that's for all condominium owners that have property within 15 miles of the coastline. And it very much works like the other program as well. It's the inspections and then a grant program
to give you options for funding. Now, last year, something that Governor DeSantis implemented was a tax exemption for some property owners that were on residential properties and flood insurance premiums. That's something that I think we should seek out as well this year to provide some kind of financial break for our residents on their properties. And then also, there are some hardening programs that we've discussed that I think Vice Mayor positioned it was a couple of commissions ago, but the PACE program to give people alternative methods for making their homes more resilient. Just finding other ways to harden their homes and give them some breaks on these costs.
May I interrupt you there? Since
Yes,
you're in
ma'am.
the section, I'll go back to the others before, but while we're talking about that, and there is support for this among our state representatives to enhance the Florida Building Code itself to require the windstorm ratings of South Florida Building Code. There is support for this. I've been in contact with various state representatives all the way from the Keys on north, that if we want to bring down insurance rates for everybody in Florida, we got to build better homes. And if you're just dealing with the windstorm rating, so the roofs don't go flying off and the homes are built stronger like they are here, we will be able to get better insurance rates overall for all residents in the state. So that was one we spoke about, but was omitted. And since I've already interrupted you.
No problem, ma'am. And what's been nice is every year with this program, they've expanded the kinds of projects that you can have done on your home. So maybe that's something we should push for as well, is, with the PACE program, is what you can do within the program. I think previously you weren't able to do like septic to sewer conversions, and they're roping in more projects that are
Well,
related.
this is different. This is the actual Florida building code itself. So if you're going to build a new home or you meet that threshold that you have to bring it up to code, and I'm going to let the experts in the room determine if that's applicable, but we need to build better if we want, after Andrew, and I was here during Andrew, and some of us were much younger during Andrew and maybe don't remember the details. There was an opportunity to do this, but the building industry complained because it was going to increase cost of building so much. Well, pay me now or pay me a hell of a lot more later, and that's what we're doing now. We're paying for the mistakes of the past. There is support for this in the state legislature. It's a simple one-sentence addition to this. It says, enhance Florida Building Code to require the windstorm ratings of the South Florida Building Code. Okay, and, I've already been working with the state reps on it. It's pretty clear what needs to be done, and, it's everything from the strapping on the roof down to the foundation. So we have something that's resilient in the future to the wind issues that we're going to be dealing with throughout the state. That's why the West Coast was not prepared in the past. I'll go back to the other stuff later. Okay, proceed.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. This week, the Panhandle could be hit with a major hurricane. The latest estimates show that it could be as high as a Category 5 when it makes impact. So that's going to have an effect, and that area definitely does not have a building code anywhere near what ours is, so it will impact us. So I think that's a no-brainer.
And I'll add that to the list.
Okay, I have it redlined.
Perfect. Next, we have vacation rentals on here. This issue comes before the Florida legislature every single year based on conversation I've had with our lobbying teams and articles left and right. Companies like VRBO and Airbnb are increasing their lobbying efforts in Florida. So it's something that's not going to go away. Last year, this bill that had to do with vacation rentals passed the Florida legislature, but then when it got to the governor's desk, he vetoed it because he said that one-size-fits-all policy is not something that he wanted to see in Florida. Regardless, it will likely come back. And what is nice is that we have in our single-family residential code, we say that there are not vacation rentals that are permitted because we list out what uses are permitted and say only those expressly stated are permitted. So there is a grandfather clause in the statute currently as it is. So hopefully when this bill comes before the Florida legislature, that clause will remain and our focus in the single-family residential area will not change. That does not allow vacation rentals. The next thing on here is zoning authority and building elements. This is a preemption issue that when it comes to building design elements for 1 and 2 family residential homes, that if you have an architectural review board, that you have some say at the local level. This is something we're hoping stays the same, and I'll point our lobbyists to maintain this carve-out. The next thing here, very similar type of issue, demolition of historic homes. There are flood zones within Coral Gables. So not that we don't want people to have unsafe homes and be able to demolish them if necessary, but we should have a say as a city and not have a system where administratively these demolitions can go through the system without some kind of input from local government. The next item on here is live local. Live local, same kind of thing. SB 102 passed and will be amended year after year after year to try to perfect. Of course, we want to find affordable housing for everybody that we can, for workforces, so that people aren't, priced out of neighborhoods indefinitely. But one thing that we should look to do, and was discussed here at the local level, it was an item that the Vice Mayor brought forth before the commission, last commission meeting, about having a conversation with other governments, whether it's the cities surrounding us or the county, as to when these projects are coming up. So something that we could push to do is have a conversation, get it written into the statute, that when there are live local projects upcoming in your area within a certain radius, that your city and your county should be notified of the process, whether it's the beginning, any kind of amendment to that project, or denial of those projects.
Fernando, I'm sorry to interrupt. Since you mentioned live local, I think because of live local, a lot of our residents in the past year have become more aware of preemptions and how preemptions have, perhaps 10 years ago, one would pass out of 10 or 20.
Yeah.
But now there seems to be a great many more. And I think residents are now aware that something that we all need to focus on. If you don't mind, I think it would be good for everybody if perhaps starting in January, February, when bills start being filed, if perhaps every commission meeting, you could make the time to talk to us and the residents of the preemption bills that have been filed and what the status of them are, so that we can engage the community on the front end instead of the back end, perhaps with the news that we don't want to deliver. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll have a sitting item on the agenda for
Appreciate it.
preemption bill update. Okay, next, condominiums, significant issue that we're seeing with this new bill that was passed as to required inspections and increased reserves. Now there's a bit of a political struggle at the Florida legislature as to, the Senate President Pasadomo said that they're not going to hold a special session to consider this bill, but then the governor wants to have a special session held by either the House or the Senate to discuss this. So we'll see where this heads. But ultimately, we want to find a workaround. You want buildings to be up to par. You want them to be up to code and have the reserves necessary to deal with their issues. But putting all of this on the condo owners immediately is going to break them financially. So we want to find a happy medium between those two. The next thing, now we're getting into the priorities that are specific statutory changes, beginning with the tree removal statute. So this tree removal statute has been amended a couple of times. Initially, when it was put out, it was very broad and general, saying that a resident could remove their trees if they thought that it was a risk, basically, which was very loose legal terminology. Then they changed it and they created a matrix as to when those trees can be removed, still with no input from local government, just if there's a moderate to high risk to person or property. And what we would like to do, I think best case scenario, is potentially repeal that, get rid of that completely, and say that local government should play a role in deciding what trees are being removed and which ones aren't. But in the alternative, having a statute that has several checks and balances in there, that isn't just, hey, do whatever you want, no problem, that requires, as is written here, a more robust assessment where you have landscape architects and you have arborists that both have to say and swear to the fact that this tree should be removed because it actually poses the risk that they state it does. And if not, there are penalties that follow for perjuring themselves. Also, in the case of emergencies, if there is an emergency, that they have the opportunity to remove that tree without getting prior approval by their local government. And then adding in an element of mitigation where a local government can come in and say, yes, you do need to mitigate this tree. This is a tree that's local, it's not invasive, it's a tree that we care about, and you need to do something about replacing what you've removed.
So, yeah, Fernando and I spent, I think, starting in June, working on a red line version of this statute, and I turned out the first iteration of it, and we then polished it some more. So I'm going to ask for you to share the red line version, and I'll share with you some of the conversations I've had with state reps, because I don't propose something without first testing the waters to see if there's some reception for this. Right now, all you need is a arborist certification, a certified arborist to sign off on the letter. There's no repercussions for lies. There's no repercussions for fraud. And there's no loss of a license because you don't have a license to lose. So in my discussions, with state representative, I said, we got to stop the fraud. And that's where the edits to that statute began, to provide some teeth and require somebody that has a license to sign off, and you sign under penalty of perjury, and if you lie, there's a penalty attached to it.
Sir, anything else?
Just last three, I'll go through them quickly. Boating regulations, I'm sure we all remember the tragic accident that happened with the teenage girl from Carrollton. We want specific changes that require, penalizing reckless boating when some accident happens, that there's a penalty if someone leaves the accident, if there is injury to a person that is significant or unfortunate death occurs. These are changes that we got from the state attorney's office, and we want to sign off on these and send these forward to the Florida legislature. Then school buses, we'd like to throw in private school buses with the regulations that apply to public school buses. Similar thing, a kid in our neighborhood had his foot run over because an impatient driver went around the private school bus, and didn't see him. And it's because there isn't good signage and the road rules for drivers, the non-school bus drivers, when they see private school buses, are not the same as to when they see the public school buses. And then last thing, the stalking statute, that if someone is stalking somebody either through a third person or through a camera or through a drone, that they aren't liable for it, not in the way that it's written in the statute today. So we want to make updates to that.
So on those last two items, the stalking statute was something I actually worked on last year, and it has the blessing of the state attorney's office, the blessing of our police chief. We have a sponsor for it. Senator Garcia is the sponsor, has agreed to carry this one. So that's gone through a lot of edits. The boating regulation as well. I was in contact with the state attorney's office. They needed somebody to move it forward, and I said the city of Coral Gables will definitely put it on our legislative agenda. I have also talked to the senators about that. The school bus item, Fernando and I worked on editing that together. I had done some of the preliminary research and realized that the root of the problem was the requirement was only on public school buses. And times have changed since the 1970s. You have a lot of private schools now with a lot of these little extended vans that go out around transporting children. They have no signage on them, and what happened on Coral Way was the van stopped, let the child out. Okay, there was no lights on there. It didn't say transporting children. A vehicle went around. The child walked in front of the van, and his foot was run over, fortunately just the foot. It could have been much worse. So this changes the definition so that it encompasses these types of transportation vehicles. And I think we're also addressing the fact that you have to drop the child off on the same side of the street that you pick them up on in these private services. So they're not crossing Coral Way, and we don't have another near tragic accident on that. You had I wanted to add under the protection of the environment, something that dovetails in with some of the efforts that we're trying to make on dealing with yard waste. We can, and it's an amendment to Florida Statute Section 403.703, paragraph 28. The definition of recovered materials would need some language added to it to allow food waste, yard waste, plant and tree materials, and certified compostable materials. So that's not included in the definition. You know, this particular definition includes other recyclable materials that are not considered waste. So it doesn't have to be dumped down, you know, at the, whatever the site is now. So.
Vice Mayor, if I can go back real quick to the school bus issue.
Right.
Since it is a statewide issue, I'm sure every city, every town has this, because from my experience in Tallahassee back in the day, some issues have great, I don't use the word corporate, but powerful, they have a powerful presence in Tallahassee. So we focus on Coral Gables and private buses, but every private bus company around the state will unify because it'll impact them. So I think a good path to go down is to try through our lobbyists, because they represent other cities throughout and other counties throughout Florida, to see if they can reach out to those cities and counties throughout the state of Florida, because I'm sure this issue will be something perhaps they would want to join forces on, because I think in Tallahassee, going at it by ourselves, I think we need to, like I said, Avengers assemble kind of situation.
So that's why I wanted to be on the League of Cities legislation and policies, to be able to push a lot of this stuff forward. I've been putting a lot of time in. I think we have 5 statutory amendments here now to put our time in on, so that I can, it's easy for me to do because I'm used to being in a courtroom, to be able to push these policies forward. So, and I can explain the legislation because I helped co-draft it. But yes, it's a statewide issue. Children over profits. It's paint and lights.
And Florida League of Cities is phenomenal, and that's the right approach. But I think if we let our lobbying team know that, because they can just pick up the phone and just call the key stakeholders, and it'll just help move it along, I think.
So I would expect that our entire legislative agenda is something that the lobbyists would be moving forward on. So that's why we're having this discussion.
I agree. I'm just saying this particular issue because bus industry, like a lot of it, I dealt at City of Miami with assisted living facilities, and their presence was dominant in Tallahassee. You thought, well, I'm just dealing with a portion of Dade County that has an issue. Then all of a sudden they all came out, they unified, and it was a battle. And I can only imagine this is one of those issues that private buses throughout the state of Florida say it's going to cost us money. So let's unify against Coral Gables pushing this. But like the Vice Mayor said, Florida League of Cities, where she's going to be talking and communicating, but let Ron Book and the others know that on this one in particular, I think we need them to bring in other cities to this effort. So it's just not us fighting it. It's others, because it needs to happen.
No, it does.
Yeah.
It does. I'm sharing with other cities as well. I don't think it's going to be an arm wrestling match too much when you think about potential deaths of children.
Yeah.
As opposed to the cost of some paint or labels on the back of a bus and couple lights that can be hooked into the brake light situation. It's an easy fix.
Yeah, they'll fight everything tooth and nail, because the way they look at it is, if we have them add a light, they know in their minds, well, if it's a light today, then it's not. So they'll fight. It's just the industry standards in that kind of world. They'll fight for everything because they're concerned there'll be more. But we totally support this, and it needs to happen. Yeah.
Anything else for the good of the order?
So I do have a couple questions, and Assistant City Manager Gomez, before you sit down. At least I caught you before you got completely down. In the appropriations section, you and I had been talking about some of the preliminary work that needs to be done, planning work that needs to be done, whether it be the geotechnical, and you have the language at the tip of your tongue, so that's why I called you up. Design, would we call it, monies?
Yes.
Design monies?
Yeah, because geotechnical is typically considered part of the design process.
Okay, so we need design money, because we're not going to qualify for any of these grants until we get design done. So I would ask that we include more design money for our septic to sewer conversion plan. We're working on reviewing that plan now, and I think before, within 30, we'll come back to you as to when it's ready for presentation before the commission, but we do need the appropriations for design, because we'll never be able to get grants without it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
Yes. Madam Vice Mayor, anything for the good of the order?
Come out on October 18th with your Live Like Bella shirt on, ready to play pickleball and support the cause. Or cheer people on. I'll be in the cheering section because my knee will not be healed by then.
Yes, so on Saturday, I am putting together a game night for residents. If Billy, there we go. Game night with Commissioner Castro. At 4:30, we're gonna have trivia. At 5:30, we're gonna have bingo. Karaoke at 6:30, which I hear is a very wanted and fun event to do. This is free entry. Please do register because capacity is limited. Yeah, did I say that right? I guess. It's free entry. It's in the Activity Center. There's also going to be different stations with different types of games if you don't want to participate in trivia, bingo, or karaoke. And there's going to be light bites as well. I expect everybody to be there, but if you can't make it, you're going to miss out. And I believe earlier that day, there's going to be a movie night with Commissioner Menendez. So if you want to go ahead and just call it a day with going to the movies and then having a little lunch and then going to game night, I think that would be the perfect Saturday. Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, I forgot that we have one individual that we missed on public comment. I apologize.
Mr. Mayor, yes. Mr. Gonzalo Sanabria has requested to speak.
Mr. Sanabria, thank you for being here with us.
Good morning. Whoops.
Good morning.
My papers are spread.
Good morning, sir.
But I have a message. A message directed to the three of you. Commissioner Fernandez, Commissioner Castro, and Commissioner Menendez. You've done a disservice to the city, and you know it. You did an ambush hire on an unqualified city manager who I understand is a charming gentleman, has an open door policy, has round table meetings, he's popular with staff. But Mr. Manager, you're not cut out to be a city manager. You just don't have it in you. And I apologize for saying this in public, and I'm going to continue to harp on this publicly, not just at this public meeting, but everywhere that the citizens of Coral Gables congregate, until it's very well known that you have made a mistake that costs the city $1,000 a day. $1,000 a day. Let me explain to you why. Put this on the camera, please. This is City Manager Swanson base salary, $2,205,000. Facts. This is City Manager Salerno's starting salary, $190,000. $230,000. Fact. This is City Manager Iglesias' starting salary. $235,000 is a fact. So what do we have now? We have an unqualified city manager voted in an ambush situation by Commissioner Fernandez, Commissioner Castro, and you, Commissioner Menendez. $282,000. But that's not the end. The end is that there's an additional $71,500 that city manager has opted to be paid into his paycheck in lieu of pension. Then when you add it all up, it's well over $365,000. It's $1,000 a day that you're taking from the city's coffers in an unqualified person. And I'm going to ask restitution from the three of you. You should pay back to the city restitution of $1,000 a day since you've been wasting this money on an unqualified candidate. That's the end of my presentation. It's not going to stop. I hope you realize that you have to come to your senses and make the right decision.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Menendez.
Yes, showing a movie about two drifters that are trying to bamboozle others, and it's called The Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. It's an Academy Award-winning movie. Very entertaining, perhaps not as entertaining as the ending of this commission meeting, but entertaining nonetheless. It's free popcorn and free beverage for everyone. And you can't go wrong with Paul Newman or Robert Redford.
Thank you. Commissioner Fernandez.
Mr. Clerk, you have the pictures I sent you?
Yes, sir, I do.
Could you please pull those up?
Yes, sir.
I was alerted by a resident about concerns about the clock in Miracle Mile. The clock is starting to rust onto the pavers. Had a brief meeting this morning with the city manager and the ACM. Believe there may be issues with the materials used to install it. I know that that was a private contract. The city did not contract for the installation, so just wanted to ask for the mayor to help put staff in contact with the installers to make sure we address it. You can see it there in the bottom of the base. The next picture is clear. That was just to show where the clock was.
Give me 1 second, sir.
Trusting on the south and on the east side. Scroll to the bottom, to the base. There. Just want to make sure we address it before it becomes a larger issue. It's only been installed for a couple weeks. So, other than that, once again, wanted to thank our firefighters for the incredible work yesterday. And remind residents that at 5 o'clock today, we have our second budget hearing.
Can I say one more thing? I want to apologize on behalf of the resident to the city manager. You've worked really, really great with me. And I really like to at least stand up for our city employees, and you are one of them. And I appreciate the work that you've put in. I'm not 100% sure that all those numbers are accurate. We could look into that a little later. It wouldn't make a difference. But I would like to move to give the city manager a vote of confidence.
I'll second.
Mr. Clerk.
Commissioner Menendez?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Castro?
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez?
Yes.
Mayor Lago?
No. All right, I'm going to speak about two.
Well, actually, hold on, because that brings a question. Public comment was closed. Did you invite this gentleman to come here and speak on your behalf?
Very briefly, I'm going to speak about two things I need to speak about.
No, it's a question because public comment was closed. In order to reopen public comment, we didn't need to take a vote.
If you let me finish, first off, I did not invite this gentleman to be here. Okay. Number two, you're not going to cross-examine me, okay? Number three, we're moving on. Two things. I'm very proud as a multi-decade member of La Liga contra Cancer. I've sat on that board for several decades. Very proud of what that organization is doing. We raised $4 million this weekend to continue to treat people in this community who do not have the insurance or the wherewithal to receive treatment in this community. We were able this year to give the gala check for La Liga over $50,000 at this past weekend's telemarathon, which was incredibly successful. Thousands of people donated $5, $10, $15. It was a beautiful, beautiful opportunity. The 49th year that this organization continues to exist and continues to serve this community. Next year is the 50th anniversary. I ask people in this community to get involved, to find a way to help this community, because at the end of the day, it is the true safety net in this community which treats anybody that comes to them. They don't ask you whether you're a citizen. They don't ask you if you can prove that you can't pay for it. They'll take care of you by some of the best physicians, all board certified here in South Florida. One of them being my father, who's been working there for 40 years, and he's the one that got me involved in this great organization. So I welcome everybody to get involved. That was a great success this weekend. I'm inviting everybody on November 15th. I don't have the invitation because it's not done. On November 15th for my fourth year as chair of the Coral Gables Community Foundation wine auction, which is the Vino at the Plaza. We started 3 years ago. We raised $50,000. The second year we raised $100,000, and last year we raised $150,000. I would love nothing more than to give the Community Foundation that evening $200,000 for all the scholarships that they give to kids throughout South Florida who, in one form or another, are connected to the City Beautiful. It's an opportunity to really showcase what this community is all about. The event continues to grow. It's a great time to have great wine, great food, be with great people, and it benefits all these students who are associated with the foundation and who go to public school and some private schools here throughout the community. And I think it's something that bears fruit year after year after year, because you see the success of these children as they go off onto college, and you know that you played a role in that by being able to raise money. So I ask you people to come. Tickets are $100. If you're involved with the Coral Gables Community Foundation, just go to their website and you can enjoy a beautiful night and be amongst family and friends. So with that being said, we have a 5 o'clock budget meeting. I look forward to everybody joining us. Thank you and have a wonderful day.